Welcome to Learn Laws, where knowledge is power, not legal advice, just for education. Need real counsel, don't roll the dice. Always speak with the license to serve.
Welcome to Learn Laws. I'm James White. We're here with attorney Andrew Easler, and today we're going to be discussing ladybird deeds. They're often called enhanced life estate deeds. So Andrew, let's get started. What is a ladybird deed?
Yeah, a ladybird deed is just a document that you file with your local county recorder that tells everyone in the public that you want your interest to pass to a specific named beneficiary.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. So where did the ladybird deeds come from?
Yeah, so a ladybird
originate, I should say.
Yeah, so the name ladybird deed actually came back from the 80s. There was an attorney that was going around telling people about how to utilize this particular strategy. And in his explanation, he kept on using Lady Bird Johnson, the wife of the then president, a former president, in his examples. And so everybody just colloquially started calling it Ladybird deed.
Lyndon B. Johnson?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
You got
Perfect.
it.
Okay.
Lyndon
Awesome.
Johnson.
Sounds good. So what are the use cases of a ladybird deed? So we're often, I get this question all the time, especially being in Florida where ladybird deeds are very popular. What is a ladybird deed? Most people don't even understand what a ladybird deed is and how it works.
Yeah. So before the ladybird deed concept came around, if you wanted to make sure that some third party received your property interest after you passed, there were only a couple different options, right? The first option was to put your property into a trust, right? And that's still a very good option for a lot of people, but it's not cheap, right?
Of course.
So the second option would be to create a life estate for yourself and then a remainder interest in, let's say, your children. Okay, so to explain what that is, let's talk about a life estate.
Sure.
A life estate is a right for you to reside in your property, in your home for your lifetime. And then upon your passing, it's going to go to the remainder interest holder or interest holders who are ready and waiting to receive that property on the other side.
Of course.
Okay, and that life estate deed is how you accomplish that. You just file a deed and say, hey, here, this is what I want. But the drawback of that is that you have liability as the life tenant, the person who originally owned the property and now wants to give your interest after you pass away to your third party. You have a responsibility to that remainder interest holder now, right? You have to preserve the property, keep it up, make the mortgage payments, do all these other things. And then if you want to get a mortgage or if you want to lease it out or if you want to sell it to some third party, you typically have to get their approval. So who wants to go ask their kids for approval to go sell their house when they want to?
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Of course. So nobody would probably ever do that or want to do that anyways.
Right. I mean, even if you really, really, really trust your kids, most people don't.
Yes.
But if you really, really do, you don't know if they're going to be available, right? What if they, something happens to them and they can't even sign the documents to make sure that things happen? It's a little too risky for a lot of people that
risk,
way.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the ladybird deed enhances that life estate. That's why they call it enhanced life estate deed.
Now it's making sense. Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
So we start off with that same concept of where you have a life tenant yourself and then the remainder interest holder, let's say your kids. But you say in that deed, hey, I want to reserve these rights for myself. I want to be able to mortgage it myself without the signature of the remainder interest holder. I want to be able to lease it. I want to be able to sell it. And I don't want to be liable for any kind of waste, which is, letting the property go into disrepair or, not utilizing it to its fullest potential. So, so that's where the enhanced part comes in. Now, this particular tool is only applicable in 5 out of the 50 states in the United States. Florida is one of them.
Yeah.
And so fortunately we get to use those quite a lot. But outside of that, unfortunately you're stuck between a trust and a life estate deed if you're not in one of those 5 states.
What are the 5 states? We have Florida, we have Texas, we have
Michigan, West Virginia. Which one are we missing?
Are we missing one? What are we missing here? We have West Virginia. So let's see here. Oh, we have Florida,
Texas. Did we say Texas?
Florida, Texas, Michigan, Vermont, and West Virginia.
Okay.
Yes, I'm glad I did that because we were yes. So there you go. So we have 5 states, and the other remaining states would be
Either they don't recognize the ladybird deed at all,
Yeah.
or they have a mixed concept where you don't necessarily get all the same privileges as you would in one of these 5 states.
Got you. Okay, perfect.
So you'll have to talk to an attorney in that
obviously,
area to figure out what the best
determine-
solution is.
Yeah, to determine which is the best course for you. So what are the pros of a ladybird deed? We've already sort of briefly touched on them, but what are the main pros that somebody that's looking to do a ladybird deed or doesn't understand what a ladybird deed is that they would want to know?
Right. So first, I want to address some misconceptions. Right. So a lot of people think that if they have a will, let's say, you go to an online database and download a will and sign it, as long as it's executed properly, everything is going to go in accordance to that will. Well, it's not necessarily that quick.
Okay.
Right. And in the state like Florida, we have to go through a procedure when you pass away to get it out of your name and into the name of the people that you want it to go to by default. Okay. So unless you have some other kind of a way to avoid probate, such as utilization of a trust or a pay on death clause, like a life insurance policy, right? Then we got to go to a judge and ask the judge to transfer it out of your name and into the name of the people that you want to. Okay. A life estate deed or enhanced life estate deed, that's also a technique to avoid probate. So that's the number one benefit. The whole reason you're doing this is so that you don't have to go ask permission from a judge to get mom or dad's property into your name after they pass away.
Upon death.
Yes. So it automatically happens upon death, but legally, the official legal title transfer occurs when you record it in the county recorder. That's basically putting everyone on notice that, hey, the life tenant has passed away. It terminated the life tenancy. And now, as the remainder interest holder, I am now the equitable and legal title holder to this property.
Oh, okay. That's starting to make a lot of sense now. Okay, perfect. And
Okay. So that's the biggest benefit.
Yeah.
The biggest drawback is that it does not avoid probate in some circumstances, right? You don't get a lot of freedom to choose what to do with the property after it passes. So if you name somebody who happens to not be around by the time you pass away, then it's not going to avoid probate, right? If you name Aunt Jean to be the person to receive it and Aunt Jean passes away with you in a car accident at the same time, and you obviously don't have time to go in and record a new deed to update that, which is one of the benefits of a enhanced life estate deed is you can go in and change it.
At any time.
At any time, as long as you've got capacity to do so.
So if I have a property and I decide to put you as the named beneficiary of my ladybird deed, right? Upon me dying, you'd get the property or the title of the property, and we get into a fight. I don't like you, whatever the reason. I could then go to my attorney and update that, take you off of that deed without any permission from you at all, because it doesn't matter. And then I can put somebody else on that deed. And then if I pass away, it would go to that specific person.
Right. Whereas a regular life estate deed, you would need my permission to do that.
So
now, you said beneficiary. I want to make sure everybody's clear. The official legal term is remainder man.
Remainder. Okay, perfect. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Now, another benefit to this is it's much more affordable, right? It's basically the cost of a deed to go ahead and record this. So as opposed to doing a trust, right? Which
is a lot more money.
So that's another big benefit.
So that's a big benefit. Yeah.
Huge.
I mean, it's more straightforward. It's simple, or much simpler than a trust. Obviously, a trust, and it's obviously can be a lot more advantageous towards estate planning and whatnot as well. So that's very interesting. So is there any more cons to the ladybird deed, or are they pretty limited based on because you can swap out the remainders? Is that what I said? Remainderments?
Remainderment, yeah. So you can always terminate the remainder interest, and you go back to the original ownership that you had, which usually we presume to be fee simple absolute.
And you can buy and sell the house or you could sell the house, I should say, without giving notice to anybody. It just automatically sells, and then if you buy a new property, you can re-add those people on later on. So you don't need their permission to buy, sell, or do anything like that.
Right.
Or remortgage or all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, so perfect. Another thing to consider, though, is you will retain ownership and control over that property during your lifetime. Now, if you had put this into a trust, and let's say you lose your capacity, maybe you're in a coma, or maybe you're diagnosed with degenerative disease, and your mental faculties are lost, right? Yeah. And they maybe want to sell the property or lease it out to help pay your medical expenses or something like that. They would need a power of attorney over you to basically control and accomplish those tasks.
So that gives the actual title, the current title holder or the property owner, some protection.
Well, yeah, the life tenant themselves retains control. That's one of the benefits that we like,
Yes,
right?
that's a big
but
benefit,
the
yeah.
drawback is if something happens to you where
Yep.
you're not able to make those decisions yourself, right?
Okay.
Let's say you're in a hospital in a coma
Yeah.
and you're not waking up,
Yeah.
right? But it's important for your, for your estate, for your, property to pay your bills, whatever, that we need to sign a new lease agreement to rent out the place because you're not living there anymore, right? And maybe we need that money coming in to pay the mortgage, pay the property taxes, right? Well, nobody can sign on that on your behalf unless they have a power of attorney over you,
Okay.
or if they have a guardianship over you.
So that's why Lady Bird deeds are often used in conjunction with estate plans.
Right. So of course it's more affordable than doing a trust, but if you had a trust that owned the property, then the next in line trustee who would take over while you're incapacitated could sign on your behalf without having to get permission or guardianship from a court.
Okay.
Right. Now, of course, a power of attorney would be able to do that as well. But it's just one of those things that we need to consider is, okay, well, if we're still keeping it in your individual name, then that means you're the only one who has control over it. And if you obviously can't do that for, physical or mental reasons, then that's a potential drawback.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Wow. That's very interesting. So the rights of the property owner is they can buy and sell whenever they want, or they can refinance.
Yeah. So the enhanced life tenant is the official
Okay.
title of the property owner, right? Or the life tenant. They have control over that property during their lifetime, and they have the right to sever the interests from the remainder interest holders, sell the property, do what they need to do. The remainder interest holder really doesn't have a lot of control in an enhanced life estate deed as they would in a life
So
estate
they really don't
deed.
have any responsibilities, is what I'm saying. Is so if I'm named in a Lady Bird deed, right, as the person to receive that property upon somebody's passing, then there wouldn't be any responsibility for me to maintain the property while the person's living in that house. I just get the property transferred into my name or title into whatever I title it to upon their passing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the potential drawbacks of an enhanced life estate deed too, is if you're expecting that person to help, pitch in when there's a major repair, you have to redo the roof, for example.
Yeah.
That's something that a remainder interest holder would be responsible for helping you with, right? Minor repairs, that's the life tenant's responsibility.
Very
But,
interesting.
if the roof is going to collapse and all of the the interest in the property is going to start,
Yeah.
degenerating because, you have no roof, then it's the remainder interest holder's duty to contribute. But if you have no liability for waste in your enhanced life estate deed, then that remainder interest holder is not going to pitch a penny in.
Oh, wow.
Necessarily.
So Lady Bird deeds have a purpose and a function, but again, it depends on the specific needs and wants of that person and what they want to actually have happen according to their state. Because some people don't want Lady Bird deeds, some people do. Again, if some people have maybe a simple estate, all they really have is real estate. I think that's where a lot of people use Lady Bird deeds, is if they have a simple estate with not a lot of assets, maybe just their house. And because the house or the property is really their number one asset, a Lady Bird deed will generally solve that problem to help people avoid probate in the event that they die without a will.
Yeah. And I've even seen people name non-individuals as the remainder interest holder.
Oh, wow.
So you could name a company as a remainder interest holder, or you could even name your own trust
Or charity
as a remainder interest, or charity. Absolutely.
Okay, so if you have no beneficiaries, you have nobody you want to leave the property to, and you want to leave it to say a dog shelter or a animal rescue shelter, you could say upon my passing, it's going to go to XYZ, charity, and then those people would then receive the property upon the passing. Obviously, you'd probably notify these individuals or the people that are running these organizations that, hey, I'm giving you my property upon my death.
Yeah, please notify them.
Yes.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be exciting?
Yeah.
You get a call,
Just
hey,
randomly.
You just inherited, you have a $10 million property on the ocean that somebody decided to leave you,
Right.
Random inheritance, I guess. Okay, so what happens if that person that you leave the property to in a Lady Bird deed is no longer there?
Right. So it depends on if there was anybody else that was a remainder interest holder. So let's say if you just named James White as a remainder interest holder, then and James passed away before you and you never changed the deed, then you will know that you can go ahead and do probate, because there's no way that James can take that property.
Okay. And then it would go through the normal, typical probate process.
Probate process. Now, if it's James White and Olympia White with rights of survivorship as a remainder interest holder, and James White passed away, then by rights of survivorship, Olympia White would get all of it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Wow. So it's not super complex. It's just, talk to an attorney, speak with an attorney, figure out what your key objectives are to accomplish, and then go from there.
It's an excellent tool. It's an affordable tool. For a lot of people, it's obviously it's not a Swiss Army knife. It's not going to solve all the problems all at once, but it's a really great way to avoid probate for a lot of people.
Interesting. Okay, perfect. Well, I guess we know what ladybird deeds are now. So if you want a ladybird deed, make sure you speak with an attorney in your jurisdiction. And if you have any questions or comments, drop them below. That's a good wrap for show number 4, Andrew. Congratulations.